Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and guidance of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're also paying our humble obeisances to Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who has provided us this wonderful commentary and translation of Bhagavatam. And following the guidance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we are praying to Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī. Yadi sevā-vañcitāḥ yasyāḥ kṛpayā vayaṃ labhema sarvaṃ prāpnumaḥ prayojanaṃ dhāmni śrī-bhagavat pade Kṛṣṇa-sambandhi sarvaṃ Yadi jānīmahe tutam Aṣṭādaśasu sahasreṣu ślokānāṃ bhāgavat-oktiṣu Rādhārānīṃ na vindāmaḥ nishphalam bhagavat-yayinam radhikaya kripam vina vyartasyat sarva-pariśramaḥ. If we are cheated out of serving that personality whose mercy awards us everything we need, including residence in the Lord's holy Dham and all things connected to Krishna, and if we cannot understand or discover Rādhārānīṃ within the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, then our study of Bhagavatam has been pointless. Without the mercy of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, all of our efforts are in vain. So we are continuing our reading today from Canto 5, Chapter 19, Text 14. Yataihi kamshu mika kamalampata suteshu dhareshu daneshu chintayan sanketa vidvan kukale varatyayad yastasya yatna shrama eva kevalam. Materialists are generally very attached to their present bodily comforts and to the bodily comforts they expect in the future. Therefore, they are always absorbed in thoughts of their wives, children, and wealth, and are afraid of giving up their bodies, which are full of stool and urine. If a person engaged in Krishna consciousness, however, is also afraid of giving up his body, what is the use of his having labored to study the Shastras? It is simply a waste of time. Purport. At the time of death, a materialist thinks of his wife and children. He is absorbed in thinking of how they will live and who will take care of them after he leaves. Consequently, he is never prepared to give up his body. Rather, he wants to continue to live in his body to serve his society, family, friends, and so on. Therefore, by practicing the mystic yoga system, one must become detached from bodily relationships. If, despite practicing bhakti yoga and studying all the Vedic literature, one is afraid of giving up his bad body, which is the cause of all his suffering, what is the use of his attempts to advance in spiritual life? The secret of success in practicing yoga is to become free from bodily attachments. Srila Narottam Das Thakur says, Deha smriti nahi yara samsara bandhana kahatara. One whose practice has freed him from the anxieties of bodily needs is no longer in conditional life. Such a person is freed from conditional bondage. A person in Krishna consciousness must fully discharge his devotional duties without material attachment. Then his liberation is guaranteed. Text 15. Tanha prabhutvam kukale vararpitam tvanmayayaham mamatam madhoksaja vindāmaḥ nashu vayaṃ sudorbidam vidhehi yogam tvayina svabhavam iti. Therefore, O Lord, O Transcendence, kindly help us by giving us the power to execute Bhakti Yoga so that we can control our restless minds and fix them upon you. We are all infected by your illusory energy. Therefore we are very attached to the body, which is full of stool and urine, and to anything related with the body. Except for devotional service, there is no way to give up this attachment. Therefore kindly bestow upon us this benediction. Purport. The Lord advises in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana bhava mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru. Bhagavad Gita 18.65. The perfect yoga system consists of always thinking of Krishna, always engaging in devotional service, always worshipping Krishna, and always offering obeisances unto him. Unless we practice this yoga system, our illusory attachment for this bad body, which is full of stool and urine, is impossible to give up. The perfection of yoga consists of giving up attachment for this body and bodily relationships and transferring that attachment to Krishna. We are very attached to material enjoyment, but when we transfer that same attachment to Krishna, we traverse the path of liberation. One has to practice this yoga system and none other. Text 16. Bharate pyasmin varshe sarichalai shanti bahavo malayo mangala prasto manakas traikuta rishabha kutaka kolakasayo devagirir rishamukha shri shalo venkato mahendro varidharo vindyaha shuktiman rikshagiri pariyatro dronas chitrakuto govardhano raivataka kakubo nilo gokamukha indrakaila kamagirir iti chanye cha sata sahasrasa sailastesham nitamba prabhava nada nadyascha shantyasankhayata. In the tract of land known as Bharatavarsha, as in Ilavrita-varsha, there are many mountains and rivers. Some of the mountains are known as Malaya, Mangalaprastha, Mainaka, Traikuta, Rishabha, Kutaka, Kolaka, Sahya, Devagiri, Rishamukha, Sri Saila, Venkata, Mahendra, Varidhara, Vindhya, Shuktiman, Rikshagiri, Pariyatra, Drona, Chitrakuta, Govardhan, Raivataka, Kakumba, Nila, Gokamukha, Indrakila, and Kamagiri. Besides these, there are many other hills, with many large and small rivers flowing from their slopes. Text 17 through 18. Itasammapo bharatya prajanamabhir eva punantinam atmana tropas prashanti chandravasa tamraparni avatoda kritamala vaihayasi kaveri veni payasvini sarkaravarta Tungabhadra, Krishna Venya, B. Marathi Godavari, Nirvindya, Payosni Tapi, Rivasurasa, Narmada Charman Vati, Sindhur Andha, Sonaschanado, Mahanadi Veda Smritir, Rishi Kulya, Trisama Kaushiki, Mandakini, Yamuna Sarasvati, Drishadvati, Gomati Sarayu, Rodhasvati, Saptavati Sushumo, Satadrus, Chandrabhaga, Marudravruddha, Vitashta Ashikni, Vishvati Mahanadyaha. Two of the rivers, the Brahmaputra and the Sona, are called nadas, or main rivers. These are other great rivers that are very prominent: the Chandravasa, the Tamraparni, the Avatoda, the Kritamala, Vaihayasi, Kaveri, Veni, Payasvini, Sarkaravarta, Tungabhadra, Krishnavenya, Bhimarathi, Godavari, Nirvindya, Payoshni, Tapi, Reva, Surasa, Narmada, Charmanvati, Mahanadi, Vedasmriti, Rishikulya, Trisama, Kaushiki, Mandakini, Yamuna, Saraswati, Tushadvati, Gomati, Sarayu, Rodasvati, Saptavati, Sushoma, Satadru, Chandrabhag, Marudridha, Vitashta, Asikni, and Vishva. The inhabitants of Bharatavarsha are purified because they always remember these rivers. Sometimes they chant the names of these rivers as mantras, and sometimes they go directly to the rivers to touch them and bathe in them. Thus the inhabitants of Bharatavarsha become purified. Purport: all these rivers are transcendental, therefore one can be purified by remembering them, touching them, or bathing in them. This practice is still going on. Text 19. Asmin eva varshe purushar labda janmabhi shukla lohita Krishna varnena svarabdena karmana divya manusha naraka gatayo bhavya atmana anupurvyena sarvahyeva sarvesham vidhiyante yata varna vidhanam aparvagas chapi bhavati. The people who take birth in this tract of land are divided according to the qualities of material birth, the modes of goodness, sattvagun, passion, rajagun, and ignorance, tamagun. Some of them are born as exalted personalities, some are ordinary human beings, and some are extremely abominable. For in Bharatavarsha, one takes birth exactly according to one's past karma. If one's position is ascertained by a bona fide spiritual master, and one is properly trained to engage in the service of Lord Vishnu, according to the four social divisions, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra, and the four spiritual divisions, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, then one's life becomes perfect. Purport: for further information, one should refer to Bhagavad Gita 14.18 and 18.42 through 45. Srila Ramanujacharya writes in his book Vedanta Sangraha, Evam vidha parabhakti svarupa jnana visheshasyotpadaka purvoktaharahar upachi yamana jnana purvaka karmanu grihita bhakti yoga eva yatoktam bhagavat parasharena varnashrameti nikila jagad udharana yavanitale vatirnam para brahma bhuta purushottama svayam etad uktvan svakarma nirata siddhim yata vindati tachtrinu yata pravritir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam svakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vidhati manava. Quoting from the Vishnu Purana 389, the great sage Parasara Muni has recommended Varnashram charavata purushena parapuman Vishnur aradhyate panta nanyatatosha karanam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is worshipped by the proper execution of prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashram. There is no other way to satisfy the Lord. In the land of Bharatavarsha, the institution of Varnashram Dharma may be easily adopted. At the present moment, certain demoniac sections of the population of Bharatavarsha are disregarding the system of Varnashram Dharma because there is no institution to teach people how to become Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras, or Brahmacharis, Grihastas, Vanaprasts, and Sannyas. These demons want a classless society. This is resulting in chaotic conditions. In the name of secular government, unqualified people are taking the supreme governmental posts. No one is being trained to act according to the principles of Varnashram Dharma, and thus people are becoming increasingly degraded and are heading in the direction of animal life. The real aim of life is liberation, but unfortunately the opportunity for liberation is being denied to people in general, and therefore their human lives are being spoiled. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, is being propagated all over the world to reestablish the Varnashram Dharma system and thus save human society from gliding down to hellish life. So it's worth noting here that Srila Prabhupada is not promoting the class system that is today in India, right? Today's class system in India is a super degraded, completely removed from the spiritual context in which it was initially established. And the way it was initially established was to give people who had a certain kind of inherent nature the facility to develop that nature in a way that was both productive to the harmonious working of society and that was oriented toward making spiritual progress through the execution of their duties. So we have, right, the Varnas and the Ashrams. The Varnas were Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. The Brahmins were people who inherently, due to their past karma and guna, they were inherently good and natural at understanding the Shastra, being able to reflect on transcendental topics and then share those topics with those who were not so gifted at understanding them or being able to navigate the Shastras or execute the different kinds of sacrifices. And they were considered at the top of society, fit to lead, to give instruction at least to the rest of the society. Then the Kshatriyas were people who are normally naturally gifted in being able to inspire people and to see where certain people are at and give them instruction to meet a certain kind of standard. So they were the leaders or even the warriors, and they were considered under the Brahmins. They would take advice from the Brahmins, and then they would, based on that advice, they would be able to manage the society as leaders, social leaders, and as warriors, some kind of military as well. Then we have the Vaishyas, right? This was the agricultural and mercantile class, right? They would grow the necessary plants for the needs of society, for food, for clothing, like this, and they would execute trade, the buying and selling of those goods that they cultivated. And then finally, the Sudras were the laborer class, that they would assist the other three Varnas in their respective duties. Those are people who are not so gifted at specializing in any of those three areas, but they have the capacity to do some labor under the direction of those three. So the idea is that this, by having that structure in society, um, which corresponds to something that we find in ancient Greece as well, in Plato's The Republic, a book I had to read in my undergrad studies. We also find they have something very similar to the Varnas there. The philosopher king is at the top, and then the leaders / warriors follow the guidance of the philosopher king, and then you have the merchant. In Plato's vision, the Sudras and the Vaishyas are merged, so the laborers are mixed in with the mercantile and agricultural class. But nonetheless, the idea is that these are certain kind of natures that wise people in the past, both in the Eastern and Western world, have seen, that these are the general natures that you can categorize people in for the positive, harmonious working of a society. Not that there aren't more nuances on the individual platform. Of course there are more nuances, but these are general categories for the functioning of a society. And then the ashrams, the Vedas also give the ashrams, right? For the first 25 years of life, in Kali Yuga, when the general lifespan is said to be about 100 years, it's recommended that the first 25 years are spent in this Brahmana ashram, a student life. Right, I'm sorry,
Brahmacharya.
Brahmachari ashram. Sorry, for student life, to properly learn what is the purpose of life, what is human, what is the difference between a human being and the rest of the animals that we find in nature. What is that unique characteristic that the human being has, which allows it to ask about the nature of the self, the nature of reality, the nature of the divine, and then to cultivate some knowledge about that based on the teachings of the spiritual master. And then, depending on the inclination of that brahmachari, either they continue in that student life oriented toward a monkhood, living a celibate student life. Celibacy is emphasized there. Or they go to family life for about 25 years. And they marry and have children. And then if they go in that direction of grihasta, of family life, for 25 years, then once their own children are raised, right around 18, 25 years, then the married couple starts to, and the purpose of that is for those who are not naturally inclined to renounce sexual life, but they're trying to regulate it in a spiritually productive way. Then that's what the grihasta ashram is supposed to be for, to have some regulation while also giving some scope to live with that energy. And then the vanaprastha comes next, right? The retired life, the next 25 years, from 50 years old to 75 years old, where the married couple stops right, engaging in a sexual relationship, but they're still companions that are trying to promote each other's spiritual advancement by traveling to the holy places together and continuing to deepen their spiritual understanding and their execution of devotional service, of bhakti. And then finally, the last 25 years, it's typically understood that the husband would become a sannyasi, a monk, and that the wife would move into either a ladies' ashram, where she would also be fully dedicated to the practice of bhakti, or she would go back with the grown children and their children and help to cultivate them in a spiritual direction. So that system is very different. That original spiritual system is very different from what we see today in India, which kind of can be used to kind of keep people down and kind of a little bit toxic situation. But so the whole point of me saying in all this is Srila Prabhupada was trying to promote the proper Varnashram, not the current class situation. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded. My very simplistic and naive understanding. Of course, there's so many more nuances there. So this we'll read one more shloka for today. Text 20. Yoso bhagavati sarva-bhutātmanyanatmye nirukte nilayane paramatmani vasudeve nanya nimitta bhakti yoga lakshano nanagati nimitta vidya granti randhana dvarena yadahi maha purusha prashangaha. After many, many births, when the results of one's pious activities mature, one gets an opportunity to associate with pure devotees. Then one is able to cut the knot of bondage to ignorance which bound him because of varied fruitive activities. As a result of associating with devotees, one gradually renders service to Lord Vasudeva, who is transcendental, free from attachment to the material world, beyond the mind and words, and independent of everything else. That Bhakti Yoga, devotional service to Lord Vasudeva, is the path of liberation. Purport. Brahman realization is the beginning of liberation, and Paramatma realization is still further advancement toward the realm of liberation. But one achieves real liberation when he understands his position as an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Muktir hitvanyata rupam svarupena vyavastiti. In the material world, in the bodily concept of life, everyone is working in the wrong direction. When one becomes Brahmabhuta, spiritually realized, one understands that he is not the body and that working in the bodily concept of life is useless and misdirected. Then this devotional service begins. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmabhuta prasanatma na sochati na kanchati samasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated realizes the Supreme Brahman and fully becomes joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state he attains pure devotional service unto me. Devotional service is actual liberation. When one is attracted by the beauty of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his mind is always engaged at the Lord's lotus feet, he is no longer interested in subjects that do not help him in self-realization. In other words, he loses all attraction for material activities. In the Taittiriya Upanishad 2.7, it is said, Esha hyevanandayati, yada hyevaisha itasmin nadrishe, natmye anir ukte, nilayane vayaṃ patistam, vindate taso vayaṃ gato bhavati. A living entity becomes established in spiritual blissful life when he fully understands that his happiness depends on spiritual self-realization, which is a basic principle of ananda, bliss, and when he is eternally situated in the service of the Lord, who has no other Lord above him. So, thus ends our reading for today. We will continue from text 21 on Friday. So before we conclude our reading, Swati, was there anything that you wanted to share from your side? Any reflections?
No, I mean, I don't have any reflections, but I completely believe in the Varnashram too.
Mhm.
And Varnashram applies for both the genders. It's not just a
Yes,
man's thing, it's
yes,
a human thing.
yes, yes.
And irrespective of your gender and your belief, and I also believe that irrespective of your religion, everyone should adopt Varnashram.
Mm.
That gives the purpose in life. You are a student, you learn, and then you give back to the society, you reproduce, you contribute to the world, and you make able citizens as your kids. and then you move on to seek more knowledge, which is beyond the vision, and then you become sannyasa, devote your life to the
mm,
God. So that Varnashram was a beautiful concept that was given to us such a long time ago.
mm,
And as humans, we are so stuck in the Gruhastha avastha forever,
mm.
right?
Yes, that's a problem.
We are stuck in the loop, infinite loop of Gruhastha, and we never go beyond that.
Yeah.
So
Srila
that's the
Prabhupada,
irony.
yes. Srila Prabhupada would start to use the word grihamedi because it's like
Gruhamedi?
because it's
Okay.
false grihasta.
Oh, okay.
Because um, when we get caught in that loop, because right, we haven't gone through the brahmachari phase. Actually, that's the whole point. We haven't received the proper education of how to proceed
Yes.
through the life, because in brahmacharya we're taught that family life isn't just to enjoy sexual exploitation, right? It's the whole point of the capacity to reproduce. Everything is supposed to be for the service of the divine whole. So the capacity to reproduce is to for that purpose too, to create, like you said, create able citizens, to create spiritually minded, to raise spiritually minded individuals who are concerned with the life, the eternal life of their true self as the soul, not just the survival of this body that will perish eventually. And we're not equipped with the intellectual toolkit, with the worldview to navigate life on that level. So we're just stuck in the exploitation of the body and that in a degraded form of family life, which gives family life a bad name actually, and then family life becomes um, like an enemy to spiritual life. The family wants to take you away from spiritual life because now you're challenging the materialistic values of this degraded form of family life, rather than the family life being the womb for spiritual cultivation, right? So, yeah, I'm happy to hear that you're thinking in that way as well. So we will finish
Oh,
our
can I just add one more thing?
yeah.
Um, so the age is also a big factor here.
Mm,
As you truly mentioned, it was assumed that a human would live for 100 years. So it is 25, 50, 75, 100. Nobody lives for 100 years now. So I would say that dedicate 1/4 of your life,
uh,
or as long as you can, to learn, and then another quarter to again do the gruhastha, and then the rest half to seek the divinity and then serve the divinity,
mm,
rather than waiting for 50 and then die at 60. No, no, do it early. You can seek divinity at the age of 40. You do not have to wait. Like you're so young, people should learn things from you. So that's what I feel. You shouldn't wait until 50 to adopt vanaprastha. You can start early too, but don't forget your responsibilities as a gruhastha.
yes. That's the unique thing about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, um, this Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, is that as Srila Prabhupada is saying, he's a representative of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and he's saying Varnashram is good, but he's promoting that along the whole way. Even in Brahmacharya, even in Grihastha, we don't have to wait to do the
Mm.
bhakti. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us the most beautiful and simple system for cultivating Krishna Prem, right? Just this Harinam Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the holy names, and the association of devotees. So, as a student in our family life, as long as we're practicing Harinam Sankirtan and listening to the Bhagavat Katha, then everything will naturally happen. We don't have to wait. And then once the family responsibility is finished, no doubt, then our progress may intensify. But actually, we're making progress the whole time, and that's such a nice model for spiritual progress as well as engagement, positive and progressive engagement with the world for the sake of spiritual development of everybody and participating in the community, all that. So I'm hoping that uh, by your grace, Swati, and by the grace of Guru and Guranga, that we can have some positive influence in our local community here, actually, right?
Yes.
Jai. So, Jai Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Tirtha Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees. Samabhaktiveda Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai, Ganga Mai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai, Shyam Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Scientific Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari 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 Bol, Jai Bhakti Swati Ki Jai, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.